Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Friday Dattitude Podcast. This is episode number 141. I have to start counting now. I'm Jim Derry, along with my friend Doug Mouton on this Friday morning. Douglas, what is going on?
141?
141.
That's impressive.
Well, we only got to. Well, I mean, we're not like, you guys have been on the air for years and years and years. We're only 141 episodes in, so.
141 episodes is impressive. These episodes are all filled with stuff, and 141's a lot. Congratulations on getting.
Well, we also have something else that matches the 141. I had 141 incorrect picks on my bracket yesterday.
Oh wow! All right,
that's not easy to do.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Of course it is. Who's your national champion?
Well, they're still alive because they Alabama. So
yeah. That's what it seems to be. We do like an in-house pool at Channel 4 where there's only like 6 of us in it. So you don't have look. I like pools like that because you don't have to be great to win. Just have to be pretty good. Yeah, and I like that. Look, I like Houston, and we'll see.
They're on the other side. So
yeah,
I got Alabama playing Houston. Anyway. Yeah, I'm like everybody else. I didn't change anything. I'm pretty straightforward. Look, this morning we're going to have we are welcoming in comments and questions from our peeps on Facebook and YouTube. If you're watching live on Twitter, you're going to have to tweet at me at Jim Derry Jr. on Twitter, and I will hopefully see it and put it on the air. But our friend Jerry is with us. He says happy Friday. He says happy St. Patrick's Day, Jerry. Thank you for that. Robert, I hope we get some good Saints players from Robert. Okay, well, I think we all hope the Saints get good players. We're gonna spend a lot of time talking about that this morning. Thelma's saying who dat. Daryl is with us. Good morning. Well, good morning to all of you. We thank you for joining us again. We'll be taking comments and questions till about 10 a.m. Before we get to the Saints, Doug, let's talk a little bit about March Madness, and obviously CBS is again. And look, I'm not trying to blow smoke. CBS does the best job at bringing this March Madness stuff to us. It's on 4 different networks, all related to CBS, and talk about the how it changes your life and what it does for you.
We do some weird newscast things. We do 5. There's 6, so we combine the 5 and the 5:30, and we don't expect to go on before 11 o'clock at night. But look, it's spectacular. I think. Look, I remember it wasn't that long ago. Now they do the 4 brackets on 4 different networks.
Right.
It was not that long ago. It was all on CBS, and you get one game. There was something almost magical about that, even though you couldn't see a lot of the other games because they did much more switching between games, and you would sort of see bits of all of it. You wouldn't see a whole game at any point. And then obviously they realized there was a lot more money to be made if they could stretch it out on 4 networks. I think it's spectacular. Obviously, I had it on all day yesterday. It's fun to watch. It's even if you don't follow college basketball until March Madness, it still has ridiculous, attention-grabbing appeal just because of the emotion and the do or die. It's everything.
My son was doing a little thing with he brought this thing out and he thought it was gonna be cute, and he says to his wife the other night, he goes, we're gonna do a bracket, and they included his stepson in it. So they're doing this bracket, and he says whoever wins gets to watch the other 2 clean the house. And so I gave my daughter-in-law my bracket, and hopefully it's good enough to beat his, and she can watch him. Yeah,
that's the magic toll with the Jim Derry bracket.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Princeton and Furman made things exciting yesterday. I mean, every year you're going to get those sorts of things. And Princeton and Furman, were you surprised that's kind of how yesterday went? And do you think today's going to be the same kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, of course surprised, and of course not surprised, because it's going to happen somewhere. Look, I had UL Lafayette winning yesterday over Tennessee. That was one of my misses. But I mean, you pick those upsets because they happen, and when they happen, it's magical. And when you pick one and it doesn't happen, you feel like an idiot.
Yeah, well, I was talking smack with Spencer Urquhart yesterday. I had Texas as one of our best bets, -11. Tennessee, I'm sorry. And so it looked golden It looked golden the entire time, and then the Cajuns come out of nowhere and then almost win the damn thing.
Yeah, I know. Right.
Yeah. All right, let's talk a little Saints here. My bracket is already on fire somewhere. I think I can still smell it in the corner of the office over here. But let's talk Saints. It's been an interesting week, and I was coming on. I told you I would be on in a minute. I started typing up all the things that have gone on this week that are related to the Saints, and looked up, and I'm like, oh, damn it, we got to go on the air. I mean, I didn't realize how many things I was going to be typing in here. But it started Monday with re-signing Jameis Winston to a 1-year deal. And then it ended Wednesday signing running back Jamaal Williams to a 3-year deal. Doug, of all the things that have happened, we're going to go through, talk about a lot of them, but what surprised you the most about what happened throughout this week when it's related to the Saints?
Yeah, okay, two things. One, I think maybe the most surprising thing has to be Jameis, just because of how it played out. I would have thought, and I don't know this. Look, we're in that locker room and we're in that building a decent amount, but it's hard to know some of the inner workings. I would have thought maybe there were more bad feelings, especially from Jameis. He thought it was his job. He didn't get a chance even when he got healthy again. I would have thought he might have carried more animosity and would have not wanted to sign with the Saints. So that part certainly was surprising that it came back that way. And look, it might have meant that Jameis's agent, I'm sure, called all 31 other teams. It might mean that was the best he was going to do. And sometimes, whether you're happy or not, you take the best you can do. So I don't exactly know how that played out, but that was the most surprising. But I tell you, Jim, the one that stands out to me is that the most glaring things we knew the Saints were going to need to work on, which is going to be rebuilding that defensive line, and they got to get running back help. With that, beyond Alvin Kamara, they had very little, and they went out and partially rebuilt the defensive line and got running back help, which strikes me in the era of Sean Payton, it has often been extremely difficult to predict what the Saints would do or what they needed to do. And in this singular case, they seemed to do what we thought they needed to do. Does that make sense? Like, it was surprising in the fact that they did almost what we expected to a certain extent.
It makes sense, but to be honest, how did they pull it off? To me, it seems like almost salary cap magic. We put that in here in the lower third, but I don't know how they pulled it off, to be honest. Because if you looked at where they were and how far they were to even get to zero, and then they signed Derek Carr, and once they signed Derek Carr, you're like, okay, now they're even further away from zero. So they get back to, not only does Mickey Loomis and company get back to zero, but they get things that they need. They lose Shy Tuttle, they lose Marcus Davenport, they lose Caden Ellis, and yet they're able to bring in 2 defensive tackles, and they re-signed Ty Summers to a 1-year deal. I kind of helped fill the void from Ellis, but to me, they're basically almost as in good a shape as they were outside of quarterback, because I think they're in way better shape quarterback-wise. But outside of quarterback, they're almost in as good a shape as they were before they got into this cap mess.
Yeah, and look, I'm not sure. I think if you took the 4 defensive tackles, the 2 that left and the 2 that came in, I think David Onyemata, and certainly based on the contract size, it'll tell you this, David Onyemata is the most talented of those 4. You hope that Colin Saunders is the guy on the way up who can get to that level. So you might have taken a little bit of a hit on the 2 defensive tackles. You certainly got better in your running back room. You got a whole lot better. And look, Caden Ellis showed at the end of last year that he has some real ability. Personally, I don't think you would have in any way played him ahead of Pete Werner. I think he would have gone back to being your number 3 guy. But that room, as a room, you lost a backup, because basically you play 2 linebackers most of the time. You lost your 3rd linebacker who had a chance, who was really an ascending player, who had played well and could do some things. So that's the room that got a little worse. The running back room got significantly better. I would agree with what you're saying overall. And quarterback, which is the most important room, got grossly better. So, yeah, you have helped yourself so far. Still got a bunch of work to do.
Well, there's no question they got a lot of work to do, but I think, Doug, now they can go into the draft. And Jeff Duncan always likes to talk about how the Saints we pick whatever the best player is available. Now, I don't know if I 100% believe that. if the best player available on their board is a safety, I don't think they're going to take a safety or a
Right.
cornerback or something like that. Or certainly not a quarterback now. I wouldn't think. But it does give them a lot more flexibility, in my opinion. They don't have to go into the draft saying, okay, we've got to take a running back or we've got to take a defensive tackle or whatever. It's much easier for them now, and now they can kind of stick to their guns a little bit.
Yeah, I think the one thing you're going to have to get, and look, they may still have some more money to play with, not any more big money contracts for sure, but they may be able to bring in another piece or two. I do think there's still needs to be more on the defensive line done. Look, losing Marcus Davenport, I get it.
Sure.
I honestly, for me, maybe the most talented player that I've seen in the last decade that never realized that talent. If he could have ever put it together in black and gold, he has all pro level talent. And he would on a play here or there, or even a game here or there, he would play at that level, but it was so rare. And to me, he's the one great loss. I see everything the Saints loved about him when they traded 2 first-round picks for the 1 first-round pick to get him. I absolutely see the talent that they saw to go do that. He is just the one that was never able to realize that talent. And I understand, sort of cutting the cord. And I think the fact that as valuable as the defensive end position is, and it's incredibly valuable across the NFL, those guys are so rare who can do that. And that's why they get such enormous contracts with all that talent. And all that talent that everyone can see is so obvious. Got a 1-year contract. That obviously backs up everything that you saw too. It's like crazy talented, but for some reason never able to get it all together. You're certainly going to need at least rotational players to fill those spots, and you're going to have to get Peyton Turner to do a whole lot more for you.
But for $13 million, I mean, is Marcus Davenport really worth $13 million?
Well, it's 1 year. It's 1 year, so it's
I get it.
Yeah. The talent. I get it. Look, if you're doing talent evaluations, look, we talk about this in our stupid fantasy baseball league. Like, you always bet on upside. You always bet on the. Look, I go back to this, and this is one of my great sports lines of all time. And I think I've said this to you on this show before. A guy named Eric Musselman, who's now the coach at Arkansas. My first TV job was in Rapid City, South Dakota. They had a CBA team, which was the minor leagues of the NBA, and it was a spectacular league at that point. And Eric put together this ridiculous team. They were on this crazy roll. And at one point, he traded 5 players for 1. And I said, Eric, how can you trade 5 players for 1? These were for like 5 guys who were like good players. And he said, without missing a beat, he said, yeah, Doug, those were 5 good players. And for our league, I traded for 1 great player. You win championships with great players. And I will trade 5 good players for 1 great player every day. And that's like.
Does that translate into real sports?
What's that?
Does that translate into real sports?
I really do think it does. Well, I mean, look, if you want to win a championship, you get great players. And Marcus Davenport, I would not call him a great player, not by any stretch, but I would say he has great ability. And if you watch him, you see it. Unbelievably strong and quick. It just should be better. I'm not saying he is, but I'm saying I understand how an NFL team looks at that and says, oh my God, we got to get some of that. And if we do, but that's why he gets the track record is why he gets the 1 year. The upside is why he gets the $13 million. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, I hear you, but I mean, if I'm the Saints and I understand where the Saints are coming from, you can get $13 million. God bless you. I mean, there's a reason why the Vikings they're so desperate on defense. They're signing Marcus Davenport for $13 million. I mean, that's how bad they were on defense last year. They've got a lot of work to do. And you saw they won the division. And to me, they're probably going to go into next season as a division favorite. I mean, it's a lot more balanced now, though. I mean, Detroit is going to be a lot better. I mean, it's possible that Detroit could go into next season as the division favorite. It's not out of the question. There's still some work to be done, but Green Bay's going to be Jordan Love time now. Chicago's getting better. I mean, who knows? That's an interesting division. as far as the Saints go, Barry asked, is there any linebacker activity? And, you talked about that there's still work to be done besides all the magic that they've done salary cap wise. So really, outside of Warner and Demario Davis, and now they re-sign Ty Summers to a 1-year deal, who's just a backup veteran. Really, no. I mean, that's one of the places now that the Saints are going to need to look to make a move, I would think.
Yeah, no question. And look, there's a lot of depth moves you're going to need. Look, I still think they need help in the wide receiver room. I still think, honestly, they're going to need another running back. Just me personally.
Oh, for sure.
This is obviously a guess. I think Alvin Kamara is going to get an 8-game suspension and potentially
Easily.
more. NFL, in theory, is cracking down harder on this kind of thing. They have a new system for this. I have it's a 100% guess. But I think he could be out 8 or 10 games, would not surprise me a bit. And you have Jamaal Williams. I think they need a rookie running back. So there's a lot, and I absolutely think they're going to need help in the linebacker room. Look, you're going to play most of the time with 2, and you hope it's going to be Mario Davis and Pete Werner. And I think that is a great duo, but obviously keeping that duo healthy for the whole season, you can't go in with 2. So I think they're going to need help there. Look, you can always get cornerback help. They certainly are going to need more offensive line depth. I think they need another wide receiver. They still need a lot of pieces and only so many draft picks to get.
Well, and I find it interesting because I've said on our shows throughout the week, and I believe this wholeheartedly, that I think that the Saints still need to go in the draft, even though they have more flexibility. I think they need to go into the draft with the mindset that in the first 3 rounds, and it wouldn't upset me at all if it happened with the first pick. With one of the first 3 rounds, they need to pick another running back and one of the top-notch running backs.
I agree.
I mean, could you see a Tajay Spears here? I don't know if he's going to last to the 3rd round anymore, and I don't know if you go reaching for him. But there are a ton. Unlike last year, and really to me the last couple of years, there are a ton of good running backs in this draft.
Yeah, I agree. And I love A-Chain at Texas A&M. If you watch the LSU game,
yeah.
I was actually walking my dog a half hour, and me and a neighbor were talking about Tajay Spears. And I asked him, and he's a very knowledgeable football guy. I said, what round do you think he goes in? He said, late 2nd, early 3rd. Very few running backs go in the first 2 rounds. And I think Tajay Spears is talented enough where he might. I actually made a bet.
Yeah, he's moving up.
I think he goes in the 2nd round. Now, granted, that's a gambling bet. I didn't bet much money on that, but I think he's that good that he can. 3rd is more likely. I don't think he lasts to the Saints at 75, but I don't know if the Saints get him at 40, if that becomes too much of a reach. I don't know.
Running that 4.57 yesterday didn't help him.
Actually, we had it. There must be some dispute on what he ran, because what we had was a 4.47.
Okay, maybe I misunderstood.
Which is under 4.5.
Okay, maybe I misunderstood.
Look, I went to Willie Fritz before the Senior Bowl because both he and Darian Williams were going to the Senior Bowl, and I said, do you think they will run a good time? And he thought both of them would. And Dorian Williams was one of the best times at a line at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah,
Tajay didn't run it there. He ran it at Tulane, and I think he ran well enough to help himself. He's obviously a great receiver. He has that crazy ability to make people miss in space, which I don't even know how you quantify, but he just does it.
He does.
I love him as a player, and I love him as the character side of it. I mean, I don't know if the Saints – if the Saints were picking, I would say, let's say somewhere around 55 to 65, that seems to be more of a range where Tajay is more, go get him there. I don't know about 40. But
that's too early.
Yeah, I would love to see him in black and gold. But I will say, without question, whether it's him or not, the Saints definitely need more running back help because it was a weakness, and you have to count on not having Alvin Kamara for a significant chunk of next season.
Well, one reason why I really like Tajay for the Saints, if it could happen, and you and I have both been covering him for a long time. I mean, I've seen you out at the swamp covering Ponchula games just like I have. So one reason why I really like him is I think he could be a lot like Alvin Kamara in the NFL. I think he runs a very similar style. It's not exactly the same. He might not quite be as fast, maybe not quite as shifty, but I think he's real close. And got Kamara in the 3rd round. If you could get a Tajay Spears in the 3rd round, think it'd be a similar thing, and they could just kind of pick up. But I'm with you. I think I think Kamara's lucky if he only gets 8 games next year, Doug. And I think there's a chance it could be like a Deshaun Watson kind of punishment. He could be going 10, 12 games, potentially a season. And at his age, that's not doing a running back any favors.
Yeah, and I would agree with you. I don't know, but I do think it's going to be a while. And look, I would love to see the Saints wind up with Tajay, but I definitely think they need to wind up with a running back no matter what. And clearly, look, it's the thing that I said at the beginning. Clearly, the Saints recognize this. They went and got Jamaal Williams, and I know we're going to get to him in a minute. Maybe the single best factor about Jamal Williams is he is considered one of the great locker room guys in the NFL. And I think this team has tried to build on those guys. And I do like the signing of Jamal Williams, but I don't think he solves your whole problem.
Yeah, well, he does he has fun playing football. That's for sure.
I mean, who doesn't love that? He's one of the great fan favorites in Detroit. And they made a decision before the Saints signed him to go after David Montgomery instead and not him. And then
which was weird to me.
Well, David Montgomery is one of those guys that has always been like in the metrics, in the like broken tackles. He has always been one of the great broken tackles people. He's always been one of those guys that everyone from the analytics side keeps waiting for the monster breakout, like the guy with this enormous talent that is about to do it. And obviously, Detroit wanted to bet on that as opposed to Jamal Williams, who got a whole lot of 1-yard touchdowns and a whole lot.
Yeah, but you know what though, Doug, with Jamal Williams,
touchdowns.
We're going to get back to Jamal Williams because I want to talk about something else real quick. But I do want to talk about Jamal Williams. I think it's not. I think he hasn't really had a fair shot, to be honest. I mean, every time he was in there for DeAndre Swift, he was doing just fine, and then Swift comes back and does what Swift does, and you don't see him as much. But I'm interested to see him because I think he's going to get a real chance to be a feature back in New Orleans, and so we'll see. Again, we're going to get back to him. There's a question that's been sitting in the queue for about 5 minutes, and I want to bring it up. It's kind of off the topic of what we've been talking about, but I want to get your take on it. It's interesting. Charles says, part of the chatter around the Raiders ditching Carr was that he didn't fit their, quote, culture. What does that mean? He slurped his soup. He didn't slurp his soup enough. He seems by most accounts to have been a good teammate. I'm completely with this comment. I don't get it either. We haven't even talked about Derek Carr, and, we spent a lot of time, obviously, talking about him last week. But to me, Derek Carr is the epitome of what the Saints want in a player. There's a specific type when you talk about New Orleans. You have to fit this character mold to be a Saint, Doug. I mean, it's not like the rest of the NFL. I hate to say, I know people don't want to hear that, but
explain what you mean by they have to fit. Like, what is that character mold?
There is a certain kind of mold. You can just, I don't know if you have noticed this through the years or feel it, but when, and it's kind of a feel thing, but you have to have really good character to play here. They're not going to sign you. And this goes back. This was a Peyton thing more than as much as anyone. But to me, there's a feel, and you could tell if a person feels like he could be a Saint or not. And Derek Carr just checks the boxes to me. And I think he's going to fit in well for a number of reasons. And he's already fit, he brings in the family, and you're seeing all these pictures of comparing him to Breeze and Breeze's family and blah, blah, blah. I just think that he fits in well, as with a lot of the other players that they brought in this offseason. So I don't understand either why he didn't fit in Vegas. Was it just time for a change after 9 years? Drew Brees didn't need a change in New Orleans. I'm not saying Derek Carr is Drew Brees, but if you got a guy that's as good as Derek Carr is, why do you need to make a change in Las Vegas?
Yeah, well, you brought up about 7 points in there.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I do.
The answer in this, you might hear.
I'm ADHD, Doug. I'm ADHD.
Okay. First of all, I didn't read a lot about him not fitting in the culture, but I did read someplace about something similar to what the question asked, and I was confused by that. The fact is, I don't know what that means, and I will get to know Derek Carr. And let me call a timeout. I have this stupid thing where every third time I say Derek Carr, I call him David Carr.
I do it sometimes.
His brother, who was the first pick in the draft, who was before him, to the point that our sports photographer, Adam Ney, has put Derek Carr on little pieces of paper up all over the sports office. I'm interviewing Nick Underhill, our Saints analyst, And at one point, I asked him a question about Derek Carr, and he went, Doug, you just said David Carr. And I said, all right, take 2 on that question. And
as long as Mike Hoss and Deuce don't do it, it's fine.
So if I say David Carr in here, just call me an idiot and know that I mean Derek Carr. Okay, that's point one.
I'm saving all my idiots for draft day.
Okay? Yeah, and I can't stop saying David Carr. I know it's Derek Carr, and I know
when you go to sleep at night, you just that's what you should do as you're laying in bed. Instead of saying your prayers, just say over and over again, Derek Carr, Derek Carr.
Look, last night I went to go get. I keep Tums in my desk. I keep Tums everywhere because I eat a lot of Tums. And I don't know if you can see this. Let's see. Adam, that's a piece of paper over my Tums.
Oh, it's your Derek Carr.
Carr. So when I went for my Tums, it says Derek Carr over the Tums. Anyway, so
you can't mess it up now.
I can't mess it up. I can see it, and it's on the outside of my desk drawer, and it's hanging from the rafter part of sports. So anyway,
I guess we really didn't answer the question, but sorry, Barry says his only knock on Carr is his first meal in New Orleans was Chipotle.
Yeah, and you said Juwan Johnson made a joke about that yesterday, so we got to talk to this guy and get him
what's
right.
Up with that?
Let me. Do you want to talk about Derek Carr right now?
Yeah, sure.
Look, let me tell you the one thing, because when this was first, hadn't even happened yet, but was sort of brewing. I watched a mother load of Derek Carr footage from everywhere I could find it, the good and the bad, and there is bad. And look, when you say, well, how do you let a guy go after 9 productive seasons? Look, they haven't been successful in the playoffs, and that's what people want. That's what fans want, and nobody should ever blame them. That you want your team to achieve excellence, and they haven't. So I get how this happens. But the one thing that struck me more than anything, and there's a lot of goods and bads, but one thing that struck me is until I really deep dove into watching him, I didn't realize how really, really good his just arm talent was. That is the one thing that is how easily he releases the ball with velocity, how easily he flicks the ball on long passes, how accurate he often is on long passes. My first, most fundamental takeaway is that on a team with Chris Olave, who can get downfield, and Rashid Shaheed, who could turn out to be a great undrafted free agent, these guys can get downfield, and you have got a guy who can effortlessly, and he does it even when his body's not right. He doesn't have to be planted and perfect. He can sometimes be almost on the run or on the move and still flick it a long way with accuracy. And I think that's where you start. And look, if you can put together any kind of running game, which the Saints have been able to do the last few years, if you can run the ball and throw deep, that is a great start to an offense. And this is a quarterback with, I think, great ability. He does have knocks. He does have flaws, but his ability, his just pure arm talent to make every throw, to make them effortlessly, and that doesn't just include long passes. That includes, a 3-yard hook in the end zone. He can deliver it at, I know baseball miles per hour. I don't know football, but he delivers it at what looks like an Aroldis Chapman fastball in his heyday into the end zone. He can deliver it a lot of ways, and the arm talent is actually better than I realized it was until I started watching. That's my first big one.
And I think that's going to be, for people that you really haven't seen that in New Orleans over the last few years. I mean, even Drew Brees the last couple of years, obviously, he wasn't throwing with the arm strength. But, people, I think, put a little too much into records. You talk about where Derek Carr is coming from record-wise, and people forget he played with a defense for 9 seasons that was just plain god-awful. His offensive lines for 9 seasons last year was bad. There have been times when it's been really bad. So he's had 4 different coaches. I think coming here is going to be a big change for him, and I think it could be a big help. And I agree with everything you said about his arm strength. Things that you haven't seen for a while here in New Orleans, you're going to see now with number 4. Sean asks, can you see the Saints drafting Hendon Hooker?
I don't. I mean, obviously anything can happen. And I say I don't because I don't think the Jordan Love situation is really the ideal situation. Look, if you get a guy in the second round, which is presumably where you get him, you got him for 4 years, and then he's a free agent. There's a 4-year contract on him, and you want to be playing Derek Carr for 4 years. Look, if you're drafting a guy to be your backup, okay, sure, but I'm not sure I want to take a second-round pick right now on a backup quarterback when I have so many holes on the team, and a guy that, in theory, by the time Derek Carr's contract's done, his contract's up here, so you'd have to bid on your own guy. I do think, obviously, you're going to need a quarterback in the future. I don't think you go get him. Whoever that guy is, I think when you decide on Derek Carr, you're saying we're not going to get our quarterback of the future now. I think in 2 years you certainly could, or certainly in 3 years you certainly could. But I don't see a scenario where you do that, largely because I think the Saints need a lot of help. I don't think they need a lot of frontline help, but they certainly need a lot of depth help. And I think they need to use their second and third round picks to get all those other positions taken care of. So I don't think so. Although, look, I love Hendon Hooker. And before Derek Carr, if they had, I don't know, signed some lesser free agent quarterback and then going out and got Hendon Hooker, I would have been all in on that. I really do think he's going to be a really good player, and I don't think the age is a knock. I mean, in this day and age, you can play quarterback into your mid-30s for sure. Does it really matter if he's 22 or 25? I almost like the maturity. I like Hendon Hooker a lot, but I don't think he's in the Saints' plans. You agree or not?
I agree with your part that they're not going to go out and get Hendon Hooker. But I don't think they would have got him. No, I'm not. To me, I need more than his short sample size has shown me. And the fact that not just his age, but the fact of his age and this ACL injury is a huge deal. So you're taking another year off of his I mean, you're taking another year off of his books, I guess, is the way you're looking at it. So then you're talking about a 27 or 28-year-old rookie by the time he actually gets in and plays. I'm not a fan of it's unfortunate because before the injury, I said this kid's going to be a stud in the NFL.
Okay. Yeah. And my opinion, that's where I was wondering. My opinion is based on just what I saw of what he can do and what the upside is. Betting on upside again. But you're right, and all of your points are legit. But either way, even if the Saints do love him, I don't think now is the time to go get that.
Yeah.
In theory, you just invested all of your money in Derek Carr. In theory, you can't invest in that position because you'd be investing in your bench. And right now, this team needs too much help. And you have a chance to win this division now. You need guys who can get on the field and help you win the division.
Well, I mean, if you go back, and this is just reality, this franchise, when's the last time this franchise drafted a quarterback that made any significant contributions to this team? I can tell you. You don't have to go back and look. It was 1971. Yeah. Archie Manning. It really is. He's the only one. He's the only quarterback ever that the Saints drafted that really made a significant contribution to this team. There are no others. The Saints are just a franchise that goes out and gets their quarterback in free agency. It's just the way that they've always worked. So whether it's good or bad or whatever, it just is.
Well, certainly worked for a long time. From 2006 until 2019.
Yeah, when you have to go 15 years without having to worry about one, that makes a huge difference. And so, yeah, it really does. And just think, if Drew had left, the year before, they would have got Tom Brady probably. Yeah. So I mean, then it's the same thing. So I mean, it's just how this franchise operates.
But when you go get Derek Carr, I think you're saying we're passing on quarterbacks for the next 2 years minimum.
2? Yeah, I think it's more than that.
I said minimum because he's 4. So in theory, if after 2 years of Derek Carr, if you wanted to get somebody and leave him on the bench for 2 years to learn and all that, I could live with that. I could see it in 2 years. I can't see it before that.
Here's what I'm going to tell people who don't like the Derek Carr signing. You probably need to get over yourselves, and here's the reason why more than anything. Just because they signed a 4-year deal, I think he's going to be here for 6 to 8 years. I mean, this is not, in my opinion, it's not the first contract he's going to sign with the Saints. This is the kind of, I mean, you don't let, if he does anything near what I think he's going to do, and what you're talking about he can do, they're not going to let him go in 4 years. You don't let quarterbacks go, which is why I think it's weird for the Raiders. I mean, I get sometimes you want to move on, but it wasn't his fault that your defense sucks or that your O-line sucks. That's not his fault, but whatever.
I do understand in sports sometimes there is a need to flush and restart. I do also get that. But look, I will say this for the Saints, and this we'll move on after this. No matter how you look at this, it is a significant upgrade in starting quarterback at the most important position on the football field. You got a significant upgrade, almost regardless of what else happens in free agency. You're looking better at the start of this season than you were at the start of last season because you got a significant upgrade at the most important position.
How long you been at WWL, Doug?
I've had this job for
not this particular job. How long have you been at WWL?
17 years.
17 years. Okay.
Yeah.
I've between the hirings and the firings, I've been at the Times Picayune for 32 years. Between us, that is a half century. You don't always just chuck and duck. I mean, if guys like us can hang on some kind of way, then guys like Derek Carr ought to be able to hang on. So I just think the Raiders are morons. That's just my opinion.
No. I'm not arguing with that. I'm just saying sometimes a reboot is needed. And sometimes a reboot is needed. And okay. I totally get what you're saying. The Raiders are going to be worse off at quarterback. I get that. But
I'm just saying if you can get a half a century out of Derry and Mouton, then that's kind of saying something. And I get, it's kind of sad in a way. I mean, I'm like a cockroach. They keep stomping on me and then they keep bringing me back. Like he's not dead yet.
Yeah, right. No, that's funny.
All right, Sean wants to know: should the Saints address interior O-line early in the draft? Yes, and yes is my opinion.
Yeah, but I mean, look, the question becomes the key word in there is early. I assume that would mean one of those first two picks, 29 or 40. I mean, look, we still need to see how the rest of free agency fills out. I do still think the Saints. Look, it's going to be less smaller contracts, I think, than any of the ones they've signed so far. But I do think they're still going to have room to do a thing or two more in free agency. Let's see how that plays out. Look, they still need help on the defensive line, and that's enormously important. And interior O-line is certainly in the first grouping of what you need. And if they did use 29, or am I saying that right? Is it 29 and 40? Yeah, if they use 29 or 40 on an interior offensive lineman, I'll be surprised to zero extent. So, yes, I do need that. I don't know if early. I don't know if that's what you do at 75. I don't know if they can sign a guy in free agency that they like. But I do think that's another area that needs depth help, which is another reason why I say getting a quarterback now. You got to ride Derek Carr because you need all these picks.
For sure.
For all these other spots. And yes, that's absolutely a spot. I'm sorry, I don't see your cue, so I can't address that person by name. That's a perfect smart question from someone who's obviously watched the Saints and gets that. Yes, no doubt. The most unsexy pick you can ever make, but yes, it's needed.
He probably watches WWL as well. I'm just guessing. Doug Mouton of WWL-TV, sports director here on Dattitude on this Friday morning. We got about another, 5 minutes or so. Saints, we're gonna talk briefly about the Pels and probably gonna finish it with talking about how bad Doug's fantasy baseball team is gonna be. That's all coming up here in the next 15 minutes. So yeah, I'm calling them out. Right here on Dattitude.
Hard out time?
No, we don't have a hard out time.
Okay. Well, look, the one thing I know how to do is I know how to shut up on time. So
if we had a hard out time, I would have already pivoted to make sure, because we got to make sure that I get in my parting shots before we.
But the one thing I can do is hit time cues. I can't do a lot of things well, but nobody says I'm not hitting time cues. That's one of my up and in on the time cues. Everything else might be a little, but up and in on the time cues.
The good thing about podcasts is there rarely is a hard out. So
yeah, but this is that weird live one. So I didn't know if that had new rules. Yeah.
No. We use the same rules. Yeah, I gotta get my. It's probably the last time that we're together live before we have our draft together. All right, look, before we end the Saints comments, two things I want to ask you what you think of, we were talking about the offensive line. One thing I think that Saints fans have brought up to me, at least, and I think it's a really good question. Are they going to go into the season counting on Trevor Penning to be the left tackle, considering the small sample size you saw him play there last year, and the fact that he was like really raw when he did get in there, made a bunch of goofs?
I think the answer is yes. I think everything I've heard is they saw enough to believe that he can be the guy. So, and look, you made the investment that he has to be the guy. I think that's a great question, but I think the answer is yes. I think they are counting on Trevor Penning as being their guy, and we'll see. He clearly, you're 100% right, we'll have to take a step forward. But I think they're going into the season, to answer the question, yes.
Well, I think that they're going to probably have to. You invest the first round pick in somebody like that, I think you're kind of stuck, whether you
better be right.
You throw him to the wolves. Exactly. You better be right. So you got to protect Derek Carr's blind side. We'll see if that happens. All right. I want to go back to Jamaal Williams before we shift gears and talk about the Pelicans. And so you talked about, he's never really been the quote a featured back. He's always kind of been, he's with Aaron Jones before DeAndre Swift, even though to me, I think they're kind of what, and then David Montgomery comes in and takes his place. Do you think that, I think he's going to get a legit chance now to be a feature back here in New Orleans?
Yeah, look, I'll know this more when we see him every day, like in training camp and certainly for preseason. I don't think he's Alvin Kamara. I don't think he's at that level.
No. He's not that kind of back anyway.
So, no. So I only say that because you said feature back. Like, I don't think
like Mark Ingram.
Does he play in front of Alvin Kamara? So
okay.
Alvin Kamara, he's Alvin Kamara's number 2. I think,
but you have to you have to go, to me, as at least as of now, if you're the Saints and you don't know what's going to happen, in your mind, you have to be prepared that there is no Alvin Kamara this year.
I get it. I just wanted to clear that up. I wanted to make sure you weren't saying you think he's better than Alvin.
No. I don't mean that at all.
When you said you think he could be a feature back.
Yeah,
look, I mean, yes, absolutely. And I think that's why you got to go draft a running back. And look, I think running back is running back used to be the most important position in the draft. All these guys go in the top 5 that had no business going in the top 5. Then I think it became the most undervalued position in the NFL to a fault. I think a great running back can make a humongous difference. And I think there are too few running backs now in the first 2 rounds of the draft because a running back can change things. And I absolutely think you need to look at the season, hope you can get Kamara for as much as you can, and go into the season with Jamaal Williams and a rookie that personally I would love them to spend one of their first 3 picks, either 29, 40, or 75, on a running back. And have Jamaal Williams and that guy. And there's a bunch of guys in this year's draft, if you look at running backs, that including Tajay Spears, and A-Chain at Texas A&M, who I love. There's a bunch of guys that can help you. I think you need 2 guys with Jamaal Williams as your lead dog, and then hope you have the lead dog in Kamara for as much as possible. And then you've got a room that can make a difference. Look, it's about playmakers. It's about weapons. And running back is a place where a weapon can make an enormous difference. And yes, I think Jamaal Williams becomes your number 2 and your number 1 when Kamara's out, and you need a guy to go with him because I don't think it's on the roster now.
The Saints have had a lot of luck with that guy. I like when you say that. We don't know who that guy is, but whoever that guy is better be pretty good.
Yeah. Well, yes, go get that guy.
All right. Well, that's who I'm going to get in our baseball draft. I'm going to go out and get that guy.
Well, I'm trying to remember what happened last year.
Oh, well, you like to think of the recent past. What happened the 2 years before that? We're going to get to that. Look,
I thought in boxing, the guy who won the most recent fight was the champion. That's what I thought. Am I wrong?
No. You're absolutely right. But it's kind of like
Super Bowl champions again.
It's kind of like Rocky and Rocky 3. Remember when when he had to be explained, when Mickey had to explain to him that he was fighting a bunch of has-beens. You know, he was a paper champion, and like, okay, it was one of those things. I think that's kind of like where you are, Doug.
You want to be a paper champion?
Well, you know, I was kind of in a rebuilding year, and the rest of the chumps that we play with, I mean, that's like free money. So, I mean, you know, you can't get too fired up about that. You know, I'm going to be retooled and ready this year.
You can't get too fired up about a wire-to-wire.
No, I mean, you beat Mike Triplett.
Jumps and you. Right. Okay, no, that makes sense.
You know, you're beating up on Triplett and Pearlstein while I retool. Yeah, beating up on Triplett.
Let's get back to something.
Exactly.
Something with some substance to it.
Nobody cares about the three Mikes: Triplett, Pearlstein, and Prange. Okay, let's talk about the Pelicans. And I asked the question right there. I got the 4-leaf clover right next to it. Trying to bring the Pelicans some luck, Doug. Is the season all but over? 33-36 now. This team is just like kind of going in the tank just when you think they're playing a little bit better. Here come the Los Angeles Lakers who take a 40-point lead and then go lose to Houston the next night. Yeah. To me, if you look at this schedule, this is a crucial point.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they got to win 4 in a row, but if you look at this schedule, they got to win 3 or 4 at the bare minimum.
Yeah, look, I said that on TV the other day, and I put up my graphic looked different, but I put up the 4 games. And, yeah, if you don't win 3 of the 4, these are 3 of the bottom 4 records in the NBA, I believe. 3 of the worst 4 teams. It's your next 4 games against the bottom teams.
Yeah.
And I don't care that you're missing Zion. If you want to have any hope to move on, it's the next 4. And I think you need to win all 4. Winning 3, maybe. If they win less than 3, then I'm jumping in on that. I don't think the season is over, but I think the next 4 games will tell a lot. I mean, they'll tell a lot. I am still holding out hope. I don't know if it's possible. And it's probably stupid hope, and we had this argument in the sports office. I hope we get to see Zion by the last week of the season, and maybe something can change. I was told that's a stupid hope in the WWL sports office.
Oh, that wasn't very nice.
That's the hope. But even without that hope, this team right now, even without Zion, should be good enough to win all 4 of those, especially with what's on the line. If they can win all 4. So as of today, is the season over? Absolutely not. Let's talk again after these 4 games.
Well, I mean, part of my talking about this during the week is, yeah, I think they're still in good shape to get a play-in game, but how much is that going to matter if they can't get their crap together?
And if they get to 10, where you have to win twice.
Yeah, exactly.
On the road, both times on the road, to get there. A quick question. Do you like the play-in? Do you like the 4 teams in the play-in?
No, I think there's way too many teams in the playoffs. I think it's absurd.
Okay. Well, they don't call it the playoffs until you get to the 8. You know, like if you lose in 10.
It's kind of like we're getting, even in professional sports now, we're getting to the everybody gets a trophy. I mean, soon they're just going to like have a tournament and like everybody's going to make the playoffs and you're just playing all year for seeding. I mean, to me, it completely diminishes the regular season. I hate that they've added teams in baseball.
Yeah. No, see, I like it in baseball, but I get it. I totally get it. And baseball had so few is the difference. Look, there was a time.
7's too many in football too.
There was a time when the NHL had 21 teams and 16 went to the playoffs. I mean, how about that? Yeah,
it's stupid.
Clearly. Look, I will say it adds some excitement to the beginning of the playoffs that you didn't have, and you're not really in the playoffs. You got to earn your way in. And the Pelicans did it last year. And I got to tell you, just from experiencing it in New Orleans, that was really exciting. And that was really fun. And
that was different. That team, to me, that deserved.
I get that.
How they finished. But this
that team was the 9 seed. That team would not have gotten there. Look, the NBA set up this system. And last year, I see how it can be fun. Like, it was fun to get that team in, and that was some of the most fun basketball I've ever covered. It was enormously fun. It was
great. That's rare.
It wouldn't have happened if they didn't have the play-in. So for me to say the play-in's a bad idea, man, I loved it last year.
I loved it last year, but that doesn't mean that it's right. And to me, and just because this team doesn't deserve to be in the playoffs, they just don't. And so whether they make it or not, and even if they get Zion back and they make a run, no matter what happens the rest of the way, no matter how they finish. I mean, I'm just being realistic and trying to be as subjective as possible when I say this. This team doesn't deserve to be in the playoffs, and I kind of hope they don't go now. I mean, I'll cover them. We'll talk about them as long as they're relevant and keep playing, but they don't deserve to be there.
I would say let's see what happens the rest of the way. I'm not arguing with you. And as of right now, I agree with you. But that can change in this next, 13 left? 12?
Let's see. They've got what? I could do math real quick. 69, so they got 12 left.
Yeah.
So,
wait, 13 or 82?
80. I thought it was 81. Why do I think it was 81?
It would never be an odd number. You get the same home as away.
Oh, you're right. All right. Sean has given us a lot of good questions. Here's a dumb one, but I'm going to put Sean Hurst is giving us a couple good questions
Sean
today.
Hurst your guy?
No, but yeah, he's my guy because he watches Dattitude. So yeah, he's my guy. Should Willie Green be let go if they don't make the playoffs? I sincerely hope that you're not serious, Sean, because look, I don't think Willie Green has done a great job this year. Don't get me wrong, because last year I thought he did an insanely good job. This year, and look, it's not all his fault. Things happen, but they have not played with the same heart and fire that they played last year when they didn't have Zion. Now, this year, they've had a mix in of not having Brandon Ingram, and CJ has not played as well as he played when he got here last year. And now you're missing Alvarado. You miss Nance for a bunch of games. There's a lot of other injuries, too. But they have not played with the same passion they played with last year. But by no means, to me, should they let one of the great young coaches in the NBA go finding another job.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And look, I mean, I heard this with the Saints a lot. Do you fire the Mickey Loomis and the whole organization? It's like, okay, let's take a step back. This organization has a great deal of success. Like, take a big picture approach. I understand the anger, and I understand the frustration. I understand how well they were playing last year and how they've fallen off a cliff, especially in the last month. I totally get that. I do agree with Willie Green, and I do think you take a bigger picture look. You hope at some point you can get Zion for a whole season and let it come together. Right. I'm a fan of Willie Green. I think where they are now, with still a really, really young nucleus that I still like in a lot of ways, I am hoping, and I know this is a hope, and maybe not based maybe too much on hope, but I'm hoping this is a normal, ebb and flow of getting better as a young team. It was a 2 steps forward last year and a 1 step back, and maybe we're going to see a 2-step forward happen. But I don't think you pull the plug on Willie Green at this point, because I think we're a long way from the end of this road. I don't even know if that makes sense. It just does to me. That really has a lot more in him. And at his level of experience, you had to expect his trajectory to not be straight up, for there to be some learning curve getting there. Again, I don't know if that makes sense to anyone but me. And I'm hoping this is the normal ebb and flow of a learning curve for Willie and a young team, and that we're going to see the 2 steps forward come out of this. I think things differently, and I hope that makes sense, but I don't know if it does. But to answer the question, no. I do. No matter what happens in the next 12 or 13, whatever our math says, no way do I let go of Willie Green.
To go to your point, you talk about all the good young players on this team. To go to your point, you know who else is young? Willie Green. He's young.
Right.
I mean, so he's learning too.
Right. Correct.
I mean, it is what it is.
I don't like the way they played the last month, obviously.
And he's going to learn from that.
But I'm hoping this is a normal ebb and flow of getting there, and it's not a straight line rocket star trajectory. It is maybe unrealistic.
Think about Sean Payton, his first season coming in and going to the NFC Championship game, and then struggling, right? And then there was you go through 2 seasons. You go through 2 seasons of 8-8. I think one of them they might have won 7-9. One of them they went 8-8. I don't remember exactly, but then they go to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl. So I mean, and Sean Payton at that time was about the same age at that time as Willie Green is. As I talked to no one, It's
No, I'm
empty.
sorry.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
I'm
I
totally
thought I was
listening.
talking. I'm talking to someone
Oh,
way
he's
more.
scratching at my foot. He's just looking at me like, how can you not be paying any attention to me? Anyway, so I'm sorry. Just
Way
let me
more
do
important.
it.
Way more important. All right. Well, we're just about done
We're
anyway.
on the same page, though, right? On Willie, we're on the same page on Willie, though, right?
Oh, 100%. I mean,
100%.
Willie. I mean, you're insane if you think Willie Green ought to go. All right. Before we leave, we got one more comment here from Gene Bischoff, I believe is how you pronounce it. You don't build a winner from other teams' rejects. I'm not sure whether he's talking about the Saints or Pelicans. I'm assuming he's talking about the Saints.
I'm assuming
and
reject.
if you look at all 32 teams, if you're talking about the Saints, Gene, I will say this. If you look at the way the NFL works today, in case you didn't know, there's this period called free agency. And these 32 teams, they all get a chance to sign players from other teams, and all 32 teams, they actually do sign players that have played on other teams. So I don't think it's going to take you a long time to go back in NFL history and find a Super Bowl winning team that didn't have players on it that played on other teams.
That might be in reference to Derek Carr, maybe. Reject, but look,
I get exactly where he's coming from, and my point is that every single team that has ever won anything has players on it, significant players on it, that played for other teams.
And
so
look,
they were quote unquote. Drew Brees was the reject of rejects.
He's the original reject. He was an absolute reject.
That's exactly what he was. They
paid more. Drew Brees was a reject. So
not only did the Chargers
exactly. So I get the point. Look, you don't win with another team's number set. You know, your point guard can't be somebody else's fourth best point guard. You're not going to beat that team. I get that logic. But we live in New Orleans where we saw the guy who might go down as the greatest reject in NFL history.
He question.
Was absolutely rejected. So to say that in New Orleans, like you could say that maybe in other cities that have never had spectacular success with someone else's reject. But in New Orleans, I don't think you're allowed to say that until it's our great-grandkids who don't know who Drew Brees is. Then maybe they can say, you know, when was somebody else's reject? You know what? The Saints won a Super Bowl and had spectacular success for a decade with someone else's reject. That's just a fact.
I mean, people may have their own opinions on me and say, what is the Times-Picayune thinking? What is the John George's and company thinking? And I get that. But, you know, as someone that has been hired and fired by the same company 4 times, I would consider myself an ultimate reject. And so
you got fired 3 times and hired 4 times?
Yeah.
Flat out fired?
Fired. I mean, you let go is the same as fired.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
I mean, if you give it a slip that says we no longer require your services, that means you're fired.
It sure feels like you're fired when that happens. I know that.
Yeah, you're fired. I mean, you're gone. Adios. I mean, that's happened 4 times in 11 years and brought back. So
and I love this podcast. More when I'm not on it, but I love this podcast.
Well, I mean, as a supreme reject, I mean, I kind of take offense to that. So, I mean, you know, look, I've also been divorced in my life. So, and not to the same woman. I mean, I got married again. I found someone else that would take me. So, you know, all kinds of rejection in my life, and you just keep marching on. So, Gene, I don't agree. I call myself a winner, and I also call myself a reject. I mean, that's just what it is.
No, I get it. And look, I do get that point. But at the same time, look, watch Derek Carr. Like, Derek Carr's got ability. And watch the Saints last year. Derek Carr's got more ability than the Saints had on the field last year, period.
Just slightly.
And your goal is to upgrade your football team. They upgraded their football team, whether that's with somebody else's reject or not, whatever you want to call them. Sean Payton recognized in Drew Brees that he was their best chance to win, even though San Diego wanted no part of him. He was not part of their future. He was hurt and rejected. And they said, you know what? We think this guy's an upgrade. Let's go get this guy.
I think if you
translate, that would be a good move. I understand the logic. You're not going to lose with someone else. You're not going to beat someone with their second best guy. But this isn't really what this is. And I do think Derek Carr has real ability if it's harnessed right. Do I think he's among the top 8 quarterbacks in the NFL? I don't.
I do.
But do you really?
Yeah, I think he's about number 8. I think he's somewhere between 7 and 9.
I'd have him a little lower than that probably, but I still think I think the last year, and look, I haven't gone through all and looked at all, but I'm guessing last year's quarterback play as a team is definitely not in the top 25. It's in the bottom 7. It may be around 25. And I think Derek Carr will be a significant upgrade from the 25th or 28th or 22nd, whatever it is, best quarterback play in the NFL. I think he'll be a significant upgrade on that.
San Diego. It translates into reject. I think that's a
Well, look, this is the
that's
one.
what Ron Burgundy would have said, right? I don't know.
Yeah, yes.
Right.
You can't say you can't win with rejects from another team. You can't say that in New Orleans. Like you just can't. Like you're not allowed until we're too old to remember Drew Brees.
Speaking of rejects,
I'm already old and I do remember him, so you can't say.
Speaking of rejects, I think we're being rejected out there. They probably heard enough of us. And rejects, your fantasy baseball team one last time in dugouts. How you gonna do this? How you think you're gonna do this year?
Oh, I don't. I just want to compete, Jeff. Right. See what happens.
You've been hanging around general managers way too long.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. I like my keepers. It's not a lot, but I like what I have. Look, my goal, and I probably shouldn't say this, my goal is to finish in the month. My goal is not necessarily to win. My goal is to
just want to eat the Dragos for free.
Yeah. Because that's a beautiful thing. When you go to Dragos and eat everything you can find to eat and have a couple of drinks. And if you're Mike Pearlstein, get a stupid giant ice cream dessert. Pearlstein does that when he finishes in the money. The way our league works is there's 10 of us. We go to and 4 finish in the money. So when we go to Dragos and we have this giant bill, the 4 who finished in the money, who already won money, they also don't pay for the bill. The other 6 split the bill equally. So part of the beauty of winning is that you eat for free. And I'm telling you, when you eat for free at Dragos, and it's a lot of it, and it's freaking awesome, like it's a great feeling. You feel good about yourself.
I have to pay about once every 4 years, and this is one of the years I have to pay.
I'm gonna have plain old fashions.
God, it's gonna hurt. I'm gonna be like, stop drinking that. Don't eat anymore. No, you can't have another one of those.
Just kidding. I will not be having 9 old fashions because I'll be driving the car the day after.
Well, and you're right about pearls. I don't want that. That's on the menu. Give me something that's off the menu that you have to pay extra for, Jacket.
Can I just say this? Mike Pearlstein is maybe if you know Mike Pearlstein, he's a former Times-Picayune reporter. He's an investigative reporter for Channel 4. He is maybe the greatest fantasy sports player I have ever been in contact with.
Follower.
Because he knows very little about baseball or the players, but he reads the room. And whoever
he doesn't read the room.
No, he does.
He bids on players that you, me, and Triple bid on.
He doesn't have any opinions of his own. He looks around and are they bidding on that guy? 14.
Exactly.
An auction
draft. I don't see him jumping on players that Duncan wants. He doesn't. Duncan wants him. He goes and takes a potty break. I mean, he walks off. That's when he goes and gets his food. If Duncan and Katzenstein start fighting over a player, he disappears. I mean, when you and I start bidding on players, just sitting there waiting. Okay, are they done? Are they done? I'm getting in there.
And he never wins. But for finishing the top 4, so he wins money and he doesn't have to pay.
He's a son of a bitch, Doug. Go ahead, say it. You can say he's a son of a bitch. You can say that on this podcast.
I cannot broadcast.
Because your co-workers.
Not allowed to say it on a live broadcast.
You're going to get in trouble with HR if you say it. Okay, I'll say it for you. I'm going to put words in Doug Mouton's mouth. Mike Pearlstein is a son of a bitch.
Right. Yeah, there you go. I just think he's amazing because he finishes in the money with no knowledge. How do you do that? How do you win?
I don't know.
It's almost like the guy who can win at Texas Hold'em without looking at his own cards. Just playing the game. And there are guys who can do that.
Yeah, What's that? Would you do, Joe? What would you do, Joe? I got pocket 8s.
Right. And he hasn't even looked at it. That's Pearlstein. That's his plan every year.
And personally, he's the kind of guy who would have pocket eights and raise big, and the board comes up ace, king, jack, and he would bet big. I mean, and then he goes out in the first half an hour. I can just see that.
I don't know. But it'd win money because he always seems to finish in the money. Never wins.
All right, well,
there was a question that came up that I missed. Do we want to actually talk about something?
No, that was a comment. I would just put. He says Jamal. I would just putting up some comments. Jamal Williams.
I would agree with that. I would agree with Matthew 100%. 100.
I mean,
100% is the most you can agree, but I want to say 110%, but that's mathematically impossible. I agree 100% with that.
Well, I mean, Mark Ingram is 110 years old, so I mean, yeah, he's
by running back years. Yes, if you saw my dog's like I don't know, like 8, but he feels like a middle-aged man. Like that's Mark Ingram. You know what I mean? Like
I don't want to know
middle-aged man.
All right, look, we can go further on this show than we go with other shows probably. But I don't need to know about you hugging a middle-aged man. If you want to do that, there's nothing wrong with that. It's perfectly fine, but we don't need to talk about it on the show.
Okay, fair enough.
Right. Now that I've successfully made Doug Mouton's face bright red, and I'm just going to let everybody know I'm going to kick his ass in the Donzie Rainey League.
All right,
that's how we're going to end the show.
I'm sure I remember what happened last year. Okay, never mind.
All right, 2 years before that. Trophy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we thank everybody for watching us. And Doug, all joking aside, I know you had to work until wee hours of the night because basketball lasted a long time. You got another one coming up. Thank you for getting up early and coming on to Dattitude.
Have I ever told you no?
No, you've never told me no. Well, one time you did tell me no once, but it was actually for a reason. You had to be somewhere or something.
It was a shoot or something, yeah. Well, look, and no BS here. I think you do a great job. I think this, I've known you for at least 20 years.
Like something like that.
I honestly think this is what you're kind of meant to do. Like,
I have fun with it.
Yeah. I think you found your niche in doing this, and I think you're really good at it. And I wanted to say that on there. And every time I do this show, I feel like I add nothing, but it's fun to do. So
anyway. I appreciate that you say that. There are at least, I don't know, 18, 19 other people in the city that agree with you. So I mean that's a good one. I mean, maybe I'll get to 21 or 22
followers. Right?
Yeah, who knows? No, I'm just kidding. It's more than that. We love our Dattitude peeps, and this podcast has steadily gotten better as we've gone along. We can't do this without you. So, all kidding aside,
for a writer, you're shockingly good at broadcasting.
Well, this thing right here, is this on?
Yeah,
it works.
Right.
So I'm learning.
Yeah. No, so you always had it in you. I always thought you should be doing radio before podcasts were a thing, and now I think this is you.
I grew up with Buddy D and Hap Claudy. So
yeah, me too.
I mean, that's what that was my childhood.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna talk soon, my friend. Thank you for coming on. We'll do it again.
All right, Jim.
And thanks to all the peeps out there, my Dattitude followers, my non-followers, my first-timers, whoever they are, we thank you for watching us live. And as I always do, every Friday, I will go and put my monologue in front of this and probably be pretty candid. Can only be me, right? And I'll do that coming up. It should be wherever you get your podcast. Search for Dattitude. It'll be up there by no later than 11:30-ish. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next Friday. Adios, my friends. Oh, a happy St. Patrick's Day. Top of the morning to you.